Howdy folks, my name's Glenn and this is Slim, and this is a Cactus Atlas off-road adventure. On today's adventure, we find ourselves driving down a lonely stretch of road down the Veterans Memorial Highway in the beautiful state of Nevada. Some of you may know this area. If you're a tourist to Las Vegas and wanted to get out of town and not go too far and do something fun, you may have heard or have visited a old west mining town called Nelson, Nevada, one that had a notorious reputation. And if you did, this is very likely the route you would have taken to go see it. We're not too far. In about 3 miles, Google's gonna instruct me to make a left turn off towards the Eldorado Mountains that way, where Nelson is tucked away somewhere back in there. But on today's episode, we are not gonna be taking the normal way in. I'm gonna take you a back way off-road, dirt road way in, and seek out some other old mines along the way. Buckle up. I should say I have a slight concern about weather. Looking at forecasts for this area, there's a 0% chance of precipitation, but this is looking an awfully a lot like yesterday when I drove into the area not expecting precipitation. We had a thunderstorm. So those kind of clouds starting to gather here above, slightly concerns, but it's not going to deter. It adds kind of a sinister undertone to our adventures, making it more adventure-y. Or at least that's hopefully the plan. All right, so I did overshoot the turn just as my camera overheated, so I couldn't show you my mess up, but there was a clear place I could turn around and do a U-turn just right down the road there. And I just pulled off of 95 and I'm right under the power line, so that should be your guide, because the road we're gonna take starts off anyway straight down this ways. The Nelson Rollercoaster, I don't know if that's like an official name of this road. It probably has like a number. There's some signs over here. That would probably be helpful for some of you, but it's this app that I use, Onyx Off-Roads, and people I think can create featured routes or just like routes through different roads and then name them. So someone at some point named this the Nelson Rollercoaster, I think, because there's some really steep hills back in here somewhere. Okay, the beginning of the Nelson Rollercoaster. Let's see how rollercoastery it is. I'm excited. I've seen some other folks' videos, so I do think I remember the steepness that gives this route its name. But so far, it's just gravel. And lots of it. Kind of deep gravel, I'd say, too. I think this whole thing's maybe like 12 minutes or something like, or I'm sorry, 12 miles or something like that. So depending on how fast you're going, that could be an hour or more. And all throughout back here are tons of old mines and remnants of mining camps and things like that. So tons to explore. So this area in general, where we're going, and especially like the area of Nelson, has its really long history of mining. Some of the earliest in Nevada history, in fact. I think one of the biggest gold strikes, the first in the state, was over here in these mountains where we're going. And it's no surprise that there's lots of other little mining camps and mines dotting this entire region. If you look at and study maps, you would see lots of them. Well, I would say so far, if you want a smooth, comfortable ride, this back way into Nelson is not very comfortable, very washboardy. Some of the worst washboards I've encountered yet on my travels. Really big ones. And then I would say the view so far sucks, you know, driving around like along the power line. So I'm hoping we turn that all around, because this is not a very enjoyable off-road experience so far. I saw something strange and interesting that I wanted to pull over and show you, but for the most part I wanted to come and survey the landscape also. I'm still like right underneath these giant power lines here, but that's okay. We're about to cut off this way, but this is the general direction I think we're going to be going, and the roller coaster portion I suspect are these hills that we have to go up and over. That should be fun, and we are on BLM land. I think this is all public lands. I'm hoping we can get aerial actually once I get out and away from the power lines. I don't want to fly near those. But come look at this weird thing. This thing here to me is very Mojave Desert strange. Why is this here? Did someone break down in the 70s or something and abandon their van out here? Someone just drive it out here for the hell of it? And it still holds true. Doesn't matter if you're in the Sonoran Desert, the Tonto National Forest, whatever. If there is a vehicle, a rusted vehicle, out in the middle of the desert, it is obligatory to just shoot the hell out of it with your gun and just obliterate it with bullet holes. For those of you acquainted with the Fallout video game series, this also kind of reminds me of something you'd find in that game out in like Fallout New Vegas out here in the Mojave Desert, the setting for that game, in fact. This is giving me those vibes, and seeing these rusted out cars here. Probably some snakes hanging out underneath this too, I wouldn't be surprised. All right, with that said, I think it's time to get back in Slim here and get to some more interesting places. Nelson is a treat. If you don't know anything about Nelson, I think you're really going to enjoy that segment. So stick with us and we'll get through this thing. All right, I just used the handy dandy tool on my app, that onX Offroads, and you can drop points on maps to instantly figure out how far the miles is to something, and 1.45 miles until we make our left turn off into the hills, and I suspect then things will start to get more pretty. Although off on the right in the background, there's some pretty rocks out there. And it's starting to get, a lot more thick with vegetation and yucca and the plants of the Mojave Desert. All right, I've figured out what's going on here. So we do want to go up this. This is the Combination Mine Road. I think that's the actual name of the road. Maybe there's a mine called the Combination Mine somewhere back here, but the Nelson Rollercoaster route does cut through here, and I'm wondering if those hills in front of us are the steep sections that we're going to encounter, or if it's beyond those. I have expectations. Okay, so we have choices now, but if we want to stay on the Nelson Rollercoaster proper, I would take the leftmost of the roads here presented to us, of which there are 3 we could do. There is the one off to the right, which if I took that, goes next to something called the Ora Plata Mine. I'm going to guess a few miles up the road, so that might add some time to our exploration. The one right in the middle reconnects with the Nelson Rollercoaster, and it looks like right off to the right there should be an old mine called the Silver Legion Mine. Who knows, probably just a pile of tailings, if that. Or we just stick with the route that we have, the Nelson Rollercoaster route. So I'm kind of thinking the Ora Plata was one that I thought we might be able to get to see, but it's already 1 o'clock, so time is burning and we've got a lot to see in Nelson. So I might take the Combination Mine Road. I don't know if we're going to be missing out on hilly sections if I do that. That's the only thing, but I think I'm going to take a chance on that, and we're going to take the Combination Mine Road right past the Silver Legion Mine and see if we see anything. I would say the road here is a lot smoother than that road by the power lines coming in. Once we got off of that, it does have like a sandy, kind of deep gravelly texture to it, but it's very smooth and quite a pleasure to drive on actually so far. Needless to say, if you're an off-roader, there are multiple ways you could attack this to get over to Nelson Ghost Town. You don't really have to do this exact route if you don't want to. But it is kind of fun. I think you could take a route that takes you all the way down to the Colorado River and then kind of cuts back up. I think we just reconnected with the actual Nelson Rollercoaster route. And I did not see any evidence of a mine, so it's probably tucked away back there somewhere. You would have seen it. We filmed almost all the way through that middle section. or am I losing my mind? No, I am not. So I don't think there was much to see is my guess. So a lot of these mines, like I said, they're probably there. Probably just holes with a fence around it or something like that. Speak of the devil, I see some kind of weird contraption or structure up there. I have no idea what it is. I think I'm gonna just park down here and we'll walk up there, get some exercise, which I could use. I have no idea what that is, but it looks worth checking out. Only weird thing is there's really nothing on my offline map or the maps that I'm using indicating a mine over here, but I do see some fenced off things right there, so there are probably some deep pits. So I suspect we found a mine, one that is not on my map. And yeah, whatever this is, looks like some kind of hoist system, remnants of a head frame maybe, I don't know. Possibly. Looks like there might even be a pit right here that this is built over. Maybe that is some kind of a head frame or pulley system. Very cool. Oh wow, look at that. How cool is that? We found a mine. I was not expecting that. This is a cool one too. See if I can get a look over that for you. I can't tell if I see a bottom or just garbage like stuck up in there. That is quite neat. Oh yeah, there's like a wide open adit over there going into a mine in that horizontal face over there, another fenced off area. So I think we found a gold mine of cool stuff up here. I just wish my map said what it was or what it is. I mean, it has the classic look of old. It's too bad we couldn't see this whole thing in its full glory, because it appears like, I don't know how they did that, man, but they pulled those tracks. I assume those are some kind of tracks to haul up buckets of stuff, like go almost vertical down that. It's a very foreboding looking mine, but yeah, just all that cool timbering and stuff. That's really neat. You see old cans that were not pop tops rusted out here, so you never know. I mean, maybe this was from the 60s or 70s or something like that, maybe older. The building materials and, you know, things look like they're probably from a more modern era, at least the 1900s. All the nails look like those from the 20th century. So who knows, but wouldn't be surprised if it's like goes back as far as the 10s or 20s or 30s or something. You can see that rain cloud, that big cumulus looking cloud. Didn't really turn into a full-on thunderstorm, but that was that initial weather that I was concerned about. Now that area over there is really dug out and really cool looking. You know, I almost see like what looks like a dirt arch, like straight ahead. I thought it was like it's probably an adit, like a portal going into like a adit, like a mine. So I'm really curious what lies over there. This is probably a drone-worthy spot too, to kind of survey this immediate area and maybe get on top of some of these pits, which we're not going to get a good view on foot. This was pretty interesting too, I thought. The two interesting points to check out before we continue up into the hills. Unless someone took out this fence too. But from the air, I really couldn't get a good look down in there. But oh yeah, what do you know? I don't know how far down that goes either. It's no idea. So I just decided to come out here on foot, little ways from where I was flying the drone, just to peek in here. I couldn't tell what this was, if this is like a, yeah, look at that. That is a mine. So be very careful. But how cool, oh, it's a bird, is that? There's a deep pit here, and then you see all that old timbering over that ways. I don't know if there was a collapse. Like when we were on top of it, it almost looks like they were mining from the top, like as a ditch, but really deep pit here. Guess I'm obligated to do one. All right, let us continue on with our journey. I think this is the correct road. It's split into 3 again. And you never can tell until your freaking GPS takes forever to update. It may have driven right in between those 2 features we just saw. Ooh, there's a rusted out. Is that an ore cart down there? No, I think that's not. Bunch of rusty junk though. And I think, yeah, I think the actual road goes right in between that mine, like the 2 mines I showed you, the wooden one and the one that is the big pit. But here's where it connects back up with the actual road. So there's many different ways to go through here. Yeah, there are lots of like crisscrossing roads that go through here and so many different routes you can take. Even some that cut through private land. I saw some where it says you're allowed to drive through it at your own risk. So this is starting to get more fun and adventure-y now, I would say, in terms of the off-road factor. Yeah, this is a nice little fun drive now. I wonder if there were fires or something, because there are sections of Yucca that just look dead compared to some of the other ones we've been seeing. Oh yeah, we're definitely heading off into the hills here, and I see it going up and down, so I think we will enjoy some steepness and adventure here. Wowzers, look at this hill here. This might require getting some aerial footage of this guy. I think this might be one of the problematic spots that freaks people out. I could see why. I could see why they call it the roller coaster now. All right, I'm going up this really steep hill here. The Nelson Rollercoaster, I gotta secure everything. I'm trying to get a cool shot with the drone as I go up it to hopefully communicate the steepness of this. See if my tires slip on this. I mean, may want to put this in 4 high actually. This is steep. Here I come. I'm coming into frame now with the drone. It does not look as steep. Holy moly, this is one of the steepest hills I have done yet in this truck. It made it look like nothing. All right, we're coming over this really steep part up here. Oh, I can't see over my hood either. That's the hard part. You want to make sure you stay on the road and don't drive off of it, because you could really easily right here. My goodness gracious. Yeah, we're just gonna keep winding, I guess, up here. I don't know, that may have been one of the easier sections as far as I know, up here on the Nelson Rollercoaster. Yeehaw. I'm trying to keep an eye on multiple things at once here. Holy crap! Oh my god. Woo! Is this the freaking road? I can't tell. I can't tell. I can't see over my dang hood. I'm gonna have to get out and survey this, man. It's the hard thing in being a truck. Give me 1 sec. Whoa. Okay, almost certainly this is where the thing gets its name. That is steep. I am looking down the face of this thing. You guys, there's no way you can tell. If you were coming the other way through this, I might have to be, I don't know, I might have to lock my diffs. I'm like leaning forward out of my seat here. I'm looking at the drone here, you know, to kind of see. And I don't know if it's just not a good angle, but dude, oh shoot, there is a drop off right there. Oh yo yo. Oh yo yo yo. I'm slipping down the hill now. The gravity's bringing me down. This absolutely is why this was called the Nelson Rollercoaster, no doubt. Oh, it's fun, man. It's really fun, but it's something too. wish I could tell you what the grade is of that, the percentage grade, because I can't tell, and I have to imagine on cameras it's just not going to translate into how steep that is. All right, any doubts I had when we were out by the power lines have been squashed of why this would be called the Nelson Rollercoaster by somebody. This is fun though, this is really fun. Probably the most fun I've had off-roading yet. Just some more random crap left out here in the desert. Not sure why, but you know, I don't know how much more we have to go. I mean, no matter how you slice it, if we're heading off this way to Eldorado Canyon, I think we're cutting up onto these mountains. There's a radome up there, it looks like, of some sort. But yeah, this is the Mojave Desert. We are in the heart of it now. Oh my word. I thought we were done with the roller coastery bits, and I think I found the Mac Daddy of parts, and I definitely want the drone for this because A, I want to see if I can capture the effect of going up this thing. B, I need eyes on the other side of this thing, or I would be much happier to have eyes on the other side of this gigantic hill. Holy crap. Oh my goodness. See, it's you can really get in trouble here if you're not careful. I am leaning off to the side quite a bit here. Really steep angle, man. Holy crap. Sorry, I don't have much intelligent to say here at this point. Some more white knuckling here. Needless to say, I don't think you'd want to bring a Yugo back here or any kind of passenger vehicle. Yep, I'm stuck. We're gonna have to get this bad boy into 4 low for sure. I'm gonna lose some grip here. I'm stuck on the hill basically. I was sliding, if you're wondering what's going on here. So, all right, it's still gripping to the hill. All right, 4, yeah, so I actually absolutely needed 4 low right there. There was no way. My tires are even spinning on this one. It's strange because this one isn't as bad as some of the others. Here we go again. Oh, you gotta love it. I'm just constantly, oh, we're almost done, we're almost done. You guys have learned that by now. That's all BS. I have to say though, you know, it's ironic because, you know, I've been using 4 low, which I've not really had to do that much at all. Actually, I've not really had a good case for that. And is this the better road? Oh, I think we found the actual, like, probably better maintained road. Oh my God. Yeah. Did we do it? Did we officially? We're not done with the Nelson Rollercoaster according to the route, but holy crap. That was something else. All right, I gotta get the drone down now. And I bet you will be in Nelson here shortly. This has been an adventure. So I don't know, between here and Nelson, not sure anything's gonna match up to what we just did. But I gotta document the whole journey. Not every single foot of it. But I think this is hopefully the downhill climb in many different ways. I can relax and take a deep breath now. So I guess let me start laying down some historical stuff for you. You know, this whole area, the names get it. I think these are the Eldorado Mountains, and we're heading down to Eldorado Canyon. And the region got its name from the Spanish, at least the name we know today. There were natives that lived in this area, I'm sure from millennia before that. But the Spanish, I think, discovered gold here, and they named it Eldorado. Makes sense. And then in the early, I would say 1860s or something like that, maybe even earlier, the big gold strike that ended up forming Nelson happened where we're heading to. But for now, we'll get into a little bit more information as I get down there. But it's just kind of cool thinking about like old, like Spanish explorers seeing all this for the first time, or anybody seeing it for the first time, us seeing it for the first time, I suppose, on this journey. I just realized something. I don't think I passed a single off-roader or saw a human being since we got off of 95 this entire journey. That is a fact. Even for the times I was not filming. Not a single off-roader. It's a Friday, you would think. But I'm sure over the weekend that's probably not the case. Just when I thought it wasn't going to keep interesting, the route we're taking is very interesting. There's a lot of switchbacks over here, but really get commanding views of the surrounding terrain. I almost wonder if we'd be able to see Nelson. I see what appear to be other mining operations off in the distance. So did I sell any of you guys on wanting to come in this way to Nelson? Or if you've been there before and know the main way in, would you like to next time do that way? I'm sure there's a couple of you that would prefer that. Back on the pavement. Oh, it feels lush. Just look at those views. Actually, I think we found Nelson Ghost Town, folks. The actual site. I'm seeing familiar looking views. We called it right. And if we kept going, you'd eventually hit the Colorado. I can see where the Colorado is. But we found it. This old, historic, real Old West ghost town. All right, we are now deep inside Eldorado Canyon and did all that driving to arrive here at this Old West ghost town, Nelson, Nevada. And already it might have top 3 potential for ghost towns, to be honest. I don't know enough about the history and what buildings are real, but if these are original 1800 structures, then for sure this one's going to be a competitor for top spot. They do have rules here too, it would seem, and that's basically if they're not open, go away, and if they are open, stop at the main building here and pay a fee, which is fine with me. I actually was going to do that anyway because I would have just assumed. But if you're talking about photogenic ghost towns and scenery, I mean, I don't know how you're going to beat this. 1861, historic Eldorado Canyon. So I think I got that date right earlier when I was wondering.
I'll be hanging out right here, all right?
And at least for me today, when I went in there, they ask you, I mean, he saw my equipment and he wanted to know, are you a photographer? And I said yes. So basically you pay 20 bucks an hour is what they charge to do your YouTube in here, at least here in May of 2023. But the inside of that thing was awesome. And he gave me some free rein into this barn, he said. He said even though the sign says stay out, he says that I am allowed to go in up to the 2nd floor and no higher. So no higher, and this thing does go up several steps. And he says only photographers are typically allowed in here. So I guess that's the benefit of where your money goes. So I appreciated that. He said to watch out for rattlesnakes. He has already found one today. But this is very cool. There's so many weird kooky things in here. I think I'm gonna head on up the stairs here. I mean, this is really cool. I wasn't expecting to do something like this. I made a beeline for this. I was like, oh, that sounds so awesome. The stairs are really old. There's at least one other level. And so many cool things to see. So many relics here. Like this old stove. And this is really neat with the wind blowing like this. We'll assume my weight isn't going to bring it down today. But that's looking outside down towards the Colorado River, just a few miles downstream as they let me know. There were a few stipulations that he said. Across the way there are some like water tanks, some wooden water tanks. You're not allowed past those. There are people that live there. There's a wedding happening, so there's a roped off area. I don't think that'll affect my time here too much. I don't think I'm gonna do like a proper scouring on this trip, just because, you know, with the off-road component, it's quite a bit. And this whole side of the barn is open here on the 2nd floor, and you get a fantastic view down below. General store. And like over here, all these old oil signs and gas signs. Lucky Strike cigarette sign. It's old Coca-Cola and register. And just a bunch of old junk, furniture, cigarette machine I even see back there, and this very strange cage full of bones. There's actually like several like levels here. There's two more levels at least. Heading way up there to the top. Usually I like to save the best for last. And I can't really say this is the best, but this is amazing. All right, so that alone, I could have spent a whole hour in that. But I think there's some stuff to go see back this way, some historic buildings and such, and I mean all over there's historic stuff. And there's like a crashed plane down this ways too. That's kind of, it's from a movie I want to say. Something about Elvis, I want to say, or Las Vegas. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed with what to look at, what to spend time looking at. You know, because of their policy of charging by the hour for doing photography, YouTubing, videography, whatever. Yeah, I got to keep an eye on the time too, so, because I could easily spend these 3-4 hours here, half day, no problem. Now there's some really old wooden tanks of some sort there. You're not allowed to go on the other side of that, according to the guy who was pretty specific about that one. Now look at all these old vintage Volkswagens and other types of vehicles. So there's a lot of stuff like that out here. If you're into that, you could get very distracted with that alone. And tons of old mining equipment. I presume that they've salvaged from this area of heavy mining. Ore carts and anything you want. And then other relics spread out all over here, with another really good view of Eldorado Canyon and this fantastic ghost town. This is a fine ghost town, if I haven't said it yet. Here are a couple of the remnants of planes that I've seen that one of them, I want to say it's that one that was in the movie, the one that's tail up, or there may even be yet another one somewhere. But that's fantastic. I mean, just you could see there's lots of unique photograph opportunities over here that you wouldn't get at a lot of other places for sure. Looks like for us, we're not allowed to go past that without a guided tour. I wonder if that's where the mine tours go. But this is what I've really come to see, is this cool relic here. So these are the wooden tanks that I don't think we're allowed to go on the other side of, which is a shame because there's some really cool looking old buildings on the other side of it. But I wonder if these were some kind of like old 19th century leaching. I mean, wooden tanks are not something you see that often, if ever. I can't recall. And it's so cool though. I wish I knew more. I want to say I saw someone's video a long time ago that discussed that in more detail, and I just don't remember. Whatever it is though, it looks old. It's something I can say with certainty. How old is another question. 1800s old? Very possibly. I mean, this is a hard place to navigate just because of every way you turn your head, there's something to stop and gawk at. If you're into old rusty junk, especially like I am. More amazing views of this fantastic ghost town. I mean, look up there. The area you're not allowed to go in. I think they said people live back there. So I guess understandably, if you are a private landowner, you have that prerogative and should expect some privacy. You can see way up on the hillside too. I don't know if that's an old head frame. I see what appears to be old mines. I would say that, I guess let me share a little bit of the history of this place. So it would seem that during the Civil War, deserters from both the Confederate and Union armies would come out west to seek safety, I guess, so they don't get in trouble. And a lot of them apparently ended up here at this town and were thought to be part of the reason for the violence here in this area. There were also disputes with mining claims that resulted in murder. And just to think of being back here in that time, I imagine there would be a lot more smaller residences back then, but real Old West, where you would expect to see like a Biff Tannen kind of character. So they do weddings here, and in fact there's one happening today, and I ran into their photographer and they were taking pictures in the barn as I was leaving. And they roped off this area here. He said maybe for like the next hour or so, but there's some cool looking buildings back there. I don't know if these are originals or not. There's like a chapel. Maybe that's the actual modern wedding chapel where they perform weddings. I bet you it is. And there's a sign that says wedding party only. So another old looking building. Lots of buildings that I don't think we're gonna get to go into today. I'm really keeping tabs on time because they're really particular about their policies here, as the signs remind you every few feet. So I want to make sure that, you know, I paid for 20 bucks worth of filming today. You know, I think for now, I think I gave you a pretty good and quick tour of this amazing ghost town. But at the same time, I feel like we are not doing it justice. Well, folks, that's gonna do it for our trip to Nelson via the Nelson Rollercoaster off-road route. That was an amazing journey. I would say the highlights for me certainly were the hilly portions of the drive, as well as this town. And my only regret is that we just shaved off the surface of this place today, and there's so much left to come and explore one day, and I am sure we will do that. But until then, see you next week.